So you mentioned, Raul, that you've you lost count of how many times you have interacted with a patient, grabbed their hands, in the last moment. You've had your share of patients that has passed away. And I know that sometimes that has like it puts a burden in your heart when you have your patient that passes away. So the question is, what personal habits have you developed to maintain that healthy balance between your nursing career, Raul the nurse, versus Raul the husband, Raul the father, Raul the brother at church? What have you done to couple with that? Because there has been many times, and it's been studied over the past few years a lot. The burnout syndrome. Nurses work with very difficult, high emotional experiences, and if they don't develop that habit, a blessing can become not a blessing. So what would you say to that?
If when you work long enough, and everybody who becomes a nurse will, whether it's 1 year or 15 years, whatever, when you work up long enough, you are going to have experiences that are going to impact you. You're going to have experiences that are going to be hard to forget. I mean, I can think of a couple right now that I try to block because they trigger me, right? You're going to. So how do you prepare? I always say this, it's very important. You can't give what you don't have, right? If
Yes.
you're walking around as an empty cup, and then you walk to the hospital where you have to give, especially when you're dealing with patients in difficult situations. And it's not just your patients. When your patient is sick, when your patient is in crisis, their whole family is sick. Their whole family is in crisis. So you're often filling not just your patient's cup, but the family's cup also. You can't give what you don't have, right? So outside of work, it really is important that you do a lot of self-care. In my case, right? I'm a believer. I spend my time with God. I have him fill me up so that I can give. And a lot of it is gratitude. I mean, a
Yes.
lot of this is gratitude. When I have a difficult patient, and I'm not talking about clinically difficult. I'm talking about difficult as they're demanding, they're
Emotional.
grateful, they'll throw fists at you, right? Or the family is just like constantly, and you're at 12 hours of right? And you will have them. Yeah, will. Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, what gets me through the shift is all of a sudden I realize that 7 p.m. comes, I get to punch out. They don't.
They don't.
Whatever process they're going with, it's there 24/7, 24/7. And I realize, wow, thank you, Lord. I don't have the burden that they have. Here's one thing I've learned about life. I can't judge. I have no business judging people because I do not know, right, what they have walked through, what they have lived to cause them in that situation. It's easy to judge, but don't, because you never, even coworkers, sometimes we work with difficult coworkers. But outside the hospital, later on, I realized what they were going through, and I feel bad. I had no idea they were going through it. So when you have, really difficult patients, what helps me get through it is I'm grateful for what I have. I'm grateful that I'm not in their situation. I'm grateful that I'm on this side of the bed and not that side of the bed. And I have to remind myself, I have to take deep breaths. I have to be that spirit of servitude to get me through. Gratefulness during work and outside of work really fills a person's cup. Like for instance, here's one thing that I experienced as a healthcare worker, which I think is interesting, right? My family, certain things will set them off as it's urgent. This is a crisis.
Hmm.
And things that are important. I'll give you an example. Let's say you get to toward the end of the month and there's no more money left for the end of the month. You have 1 month and then you
Yeah.
do money, right? That could be stressful. That's a crisis. That could be, and even though maybe 3 days into the new month, you're going to get your paycheck. So the money's going to come back in, right? Sometimes I find that people or my family, whoever, that they might stress out under that situation, like stress. But as a healthcare worker, I'm like, nobody's dying. I have my health, right? I'm able to compare relatively what a real crisis is. This person just, I was just at work today, and this person out of nowhere got this ALS diagnosis. Holy cow! Talk about life changing and all about a horrible news. That's a crisis. So all of a sudden, I find that outside of work as healthcare workers, we don't hit the ceiling as fast when there's emergencies and stuff because we're able to decipher. We have something to compare to, so as emergencies, right? We're able to do that. That's a positive for us. So we're grateful. Gratitude does that a lot for us, to be able to fill our cups and help us manage these situations. That's one way I'm able to unpack when I'm at home. Now, the other thing, which is I think just as important, is healthcare and nursing can be your calling, it can be your passion. It should not be your only passion. Outside of work, you need something to be excited about, something that fills your cup, whether it's sports, whether it's certain clubs or activities, right? Whether you
Music.
like going your ministry, going to church, you need to have a second passion. Healthcare cannot be your only. That will keep you well balanced. That will keep you healthy. Yes, you'll always be able to relate to bad things that happen in the hospital with other coworkers. You'll be able to. No, your family won't understand. It's kind of hard to share with them and have them understand what you're going through. But that's why you have peers in the industry who can help you work through some of these things. Um, as nurses, we're healthcare workers. One thing that we're terrible at is we'll go out to dinner and someone will ask a question and we'll talk about things that don't bother us, don't gross us out. But everybody else at the table is like, oh, what do you mean a catheter or diarrhea? Oh, and to us, it's, oh, yeah, it happened. It's like nothing. We forget whose company we're in and how it affects them differently. So we need that. We need that support from peers because they understand us. But then we need a second passion that's totally unrelated to be able to fill us on the outside.